All right, so we want to welcome everybody and really excited to have the chance to have Migrant Seasonal Head Start with us. My name is Jessica Castaneda. I work with IDRC. Some of you are familiar with it, some of you are not. We're a consortium of 26 different states that are all working with migrant ed programs and trying to figure out how to streamline our recruitment efforts. And so Guadalupe and I have been trying to figure out how we can best work together with different programs, and she's been super helpful. And so we really wanted to we were doing individual meetings with each state and said, let's just get the word out that Migrant Head Start's interested in collaborating, Migrant Ed's interested in collaborating, and how can we do this? And so I'm just going to listen, you guys, if you need me for anything, but I'm going to hide my face and let you guys take over.
Were you not going to do this slide?
Oh, maybe I'm not. Okay, I'm going to hide my face.
You're not done yet.
So one of the things that we really feel like that in Migrant Ed, we probably really need to figure out how to improve is we all have so many things that we're responsible to do. And so we're really trying to do those the best that we can. And we forget that sometimes there's sister partners or other agencies that are doing similar things. And that when we work together, you see all these little ropes going in all these different directions. We really can work towards that goal in the middle. But it does require planning. It does require preparation. And we all have those things that we're required to do. And so one of the things we wanted to do today was look at what are Migrant Ed requirements, what's Migrant Seasonal Head Start requirements, where do we overlap, and what would be the best way that we can start this collaboration. And so now I really am going to be quiet. Turn the time over to you
guys. Thank you, Jessica. So I wanted to share a little bit about what we're continue the story where Jessica left off. And it's we're really concerned that during this pandemic we are not as strong as we used to be in helping families. And so this is a great opportunity to unite both organizations and to have them united. I know there's some programs out there that are doing a great job with partnerships and collaborations between Migrant Head Start and MEP programs. And I know there's some that are wanting to start that collaboration and are not sure quite how, and this is what we're hopefully doing today with you. I'm just sharing with you that, we have the same goal, we have the same mission, and that is to support migrant and seasonal farm worker families and their children. So we serve, Migrant Head Start serves Migrant Head Start farm worker families and children, and so does Migrant Ed. So we really are sister agencies, and we should be helping each other in anything that we can to make sure that all services, regardless if it's one child or the entire family, which we're both agencies are committed to do, is make sure that they receive the services they need to be successful in their child's education. So we share the same mission, which is school readiness. School readiness to us is what education and academic success means to migrant education. Making sure that the children they're in Migrant Head Start are ready to transition to the public school, where we know migrant education will take those children and those parents, that family, and help them through the rest of their education career and to careers, because I know Migrant Ed does that. So a little bit about Migrant Head Start, and I'm just doing a quick overview because many of you may not know that we are one of the largest community-based service providers in the nation, and all the services that we provide to children and families are with the purpose of making sure that the children are ready for school. Another thing that Migrant Head Start is mandated is to at least have 10% of the children enrolled in Migrant Head Start should be children with disabilities, and they do have a high priority in our programs. We have about 62 Migrant Head Start programs in 37 states. That's our service area. Some states may have Migrant Head Starts and some may not, but in those states that we may not have Migrant Head Start, that don't let that deter you to reaching out to Migrant Head Start, at least to my office, the collaboration office, because we can connect you with other organizations, and I can connect you with the state collaboration director. There's one in every state. So we have, like I said, 37 state service area. We have we provide services in a home base, center-based programs and family childcare. We do not do services in home base because all our families are actually working. So they have the option of going to a center base, and some grantees have family childcare homes. So the parents they can choose whether they want to go to the center base or a family childcare home. We serve about 24,000 children, a little over that. The numbers have dwindled. When Migrant Headstart first started, it was over 38,000 families. Unfortunate because of migration, because infants and toddlers take up double the space and funding that a 3 to 5 year old takes. So our numbers have totally dwindled down. So we do provide services from 0 to 5. You'll hear a little bit more about that as Alicia Franco provides her crosswalk. And then most of our children, I'd say a little over 50%, are infants and toddlers. We do have seasonal programs. We are a seasonal program. We have summer programs that start maybe about from April, May to maybe September, October. And then we have programs that are winter program, what we call winter programs, that start August, September, and maybe end up May, June. So those are our two seasons. And then we have, our centers are open, and this is with the assistance from the parents. They dictate what the need is for those months of operation. They can have up to 8, 10, 10 is regular. Most of the programs operate that, but they do go up to 12 hours and even maybe 14 hours, depending on the season. And we traditionally serve 5 days a week. And again, at the peak of the season, it may be 7. They may operate on a Saturday. And just to disprove all those things that Migrant Headstart is a daycare center, we are mandated that our staff are required to have a degree. We serve mostly, our staff are falling in the BA range, but we do have several masters, but also we have staff who are beginning their education to get their BA. They have an AA degree. And let me move this little thing up because I can't see. And then we provide transportation. Not all grantees, oh my goodness. Not all grantees provide transportation, but the majority of them do. They do very early pickup in the morning, and then provide the transportation back to home late in the afternoon. So that's a quick overview of Migrant Headstart. You'll see Alicia will present a little bit more about all the regulations, but I do want to point out something that we have that is out there, but is being revamped to be a touch screen. And that is, we have a Migrant and Seasonal Headstart locator, and it also locates health center. So 2 things that parents wanted when we first developed this app, because this app was developed by the parents with their input. And so they wanted to make sure that their child had a place for education, to be cared for while they were at work, and they also needed a place where their children would receive healthcare if needed on an emergency basis. So we provided, we have 2. We have a desktop version, which you will see on there, and we also have an app through Google and Apple stores that you can download. And all you have to put on there is Migrant Headstart, and you will be able to look at those. At that. This is horrible. I can't move my screen. Can somebody help me move my screen? Oh, okay, never mind. Alicia's next. Alicia, can you take over?
Yes, I can take over. Buenos dias, good morning for all the West Coast, and good afternoon for all our East Coast and Central Coast people. My name is Alicia Franco. I am a family engagement specialist for Region 12, and I'm super, super excited to collaborate with Guadalupe Cuesta and her team. So our goal today is to really clarify questions, concerns, doubts, some of those myths. Many of us have heard a lot of those myths of, the migrant education program is stealing kids from migrant Head Start and vice versa. So we want to make sure that we really look at breaking those barriers and collaborating together to serve one goal. And what is the goal? To serve children and families, right? So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we're going to look side to side. Let me see, where is my, so I want to make sure that you're able to see. Are you able to see my screen, Guadalupe? If you could just thumbs up,
Yes.
you're good?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So side to side together, we're going to look at the migrant education program and the migrant seasonal Head Start program, what it takes to qualify for the program, what the age limit. So we're going to go through that together. And I'm excited that I have all the experts here. I have Guadalupe, Tracy, I have all the experts here that we can work together and answer some of those questions and that we have regarding this. So first and foremost, let's talk about the migrant education program. It's two different fundings. So the migrant education program is funded by the U.S. Department of Education. Okay, and the Migrant Seasonal Head Start program is funded by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. So it's two different pots. So many times families get a little confused because often we say, oh, it's the same fund. So we want to clarify that it's two different pots that the funding is coming from. So there is not an issue for a family to be dually enrolled in both programs. Very important. I think that for us, when we work with families, they must understand that that component there. So then when we start digging into who qualifies for the program, the migrant education program, I want to remind everyone that it is for children all the way up to age 21. So that's why it says children who travel with or who themselves are migrant agriculture workers, right? So within the migrant education program, there are children that migrate themselves because they could be 18, they could be 17, right? They could be 19. But in the migrant Head Start program, it's the entire family that migrate together to that destination. So that's the difference between that. Guadalupe, did I miss anything there? I think it's very clear.
Yeah, and one of the things that I think is very important is although there's a huge range of age group in migrant education, up to 21 years, that's pretty large span, which I personally like. We are focused solely on the children under 5. Once they turn school age, kindergarten process, then they are then move on to migrant education.
Yeah, and that just takes us into the age limit, just like Guadalupe said. So migrant education program is about 3 to 21 years of age, and migrant Head Start program is children must be at least the age of compulsory school age. So usually it's, that you must be 5 by a certain age, September 1st or December 1st, whatever age limit it is within your state or your county. The eligibility period for migrant educational program is eligible to serve up to 36 months from the date of the last qualifying move to seek or obtain migrant work. And for the migrant Head Start program, you're eligible to serve during the time that the family meets the income and mobility age and limit requirements. So the difference, as we know, in migrant Head Start, they're eligible to serve 2 years, but they must make sure that they meet that age and requirement, for example, that they're still working in the fields and looking for work, that 51% agriculture work. So that is the difference between migrant Head Start, right? The 2 years, they must be eligible for a second year. And migrant education program, it's 36 months from the date of their last qualifying move, okay? So Yvonne, if there's any questions, please stop us. I know we're going kind of fast, but we want to make sure that we get through it And then if, make sure you're jotting down your questions and you're able to ask Guadalupe and I. The next one talks about minimum duration and financial importance of the qualifying employment activity. So for migrant education program, there is no minimum duration of labor required. So no guidelines, in contrast to Migrant Head Start, right? Migrant Head Start, you must meet that poverty guidelines, the Head Start poverty guidelines, right? Income, and that we gotta also make sure that the income comes from agriculture work. So 51% of your income must be coming from agriculture work. You could still be, one of the parents could still be working at Target, one of the parents could still be working somewhere else, but the majority of your income comes from agriculture work. Okay, and you must also meet the poverty guidelines. And we know in different states, and here in the United States, it's different. Again, just like Guadalupe shared, 10% of the families might be over income, but we do reserve a lot of the slots for children with disabilities and IEPs or IFSPs. The next column talks about agriculture work. In the migrant education world, the production of initial processing of crops, dairy products, poultry, livestock, as well as the cultivation and harvesting of trees. Now in Migrant Head Start, everything has changed, right? The new performance standards has given you agencies the opportunity to define it based on your needs. What are the needs in your community? What does your self-assessment say? What does your community assessment say? So a lot of you have adopted what the state agriculture, Department of Agriculture states, right? There are states like, for example, here in California, there's a lot of dairies, right? There's a lot of beekeepers. There's a lot of, so we were able to incorporate that to our Migrant Head Start program. Are we good to go on to the next page, Guadalupe? Any questions, any burning questions? We're good? Okay, perfect. Migrant education program, this was really interesting for me. So in the migrant education program, there is fishing work. So catching or initial processing of fish or shellfish, or raising, harvesting fish. So in migrant education program, it does qualify. But for Migrant Head Start, it depends. If you added that on to your policies and procedures and to your definition of agriculture, you're able to fit that in to what best meets the needs of your grantee. Some of you might have it, some of you might not, right? The next one talks about must work be temporary or seasonal. Yes, for both of them, absolutely. Temporary employment or seasonal in agriculture work or fishing work, and also for Migrant Head Start, migrant families who engage in agriculture labor, who have changed their residence within the last 2 years. So for both programs, there must be temporary or seasonal work. So this is what we call the migrant, right, workers that come in temporarily, or the seasonal workers that do not move, they stay with you, right? What we're seeing a lot now is that families are not leaving. There's a fear, there's the lack of resources, the lack of housing, so they don't want to leave. They're in Colorado, they're staying with Tracy. I'm going to stay here for the next season. I'm going to see if I qualify for a state program, for a regional Head Start program, and I'm going to stay. They're afraid of leaving, so we have more seasonal. And I think as grantees, we've shared these concerns with our program specialist and with Sandra Carton, right? That we're not seeing as many migrating families, and we're seeing more seasonal families. So again, they do qualify for the program. The change of residency, when we talk about the change of residency in migrant education program, yes, a change of residency can be from one residence to another residence that occurs due to an economic necessity, and also for the Migrant Head Start program. Many migrant Head Start program families do move based on their needs, based on where the corrida is, based on where the work is. So they do move, and it's have they moved, what we look at, have they moved within the last 2 years, right? And that's what would qualify them for the migrant program. The duration of the move for the migrant education program, there is no duration that's specified. And also for Migrant Head Start, there is no duration that's specified in the regulation. as we go down to our next page, we look at the distance. And in migrant education program, there is stipulations about the distance. So yes, there is, from one residence to another residence that occurs due to an economic necessity. So there's all these stipulations that talks about, there needs to be that move in order for them to qualify that distance. And in Migrant Head Start, there really isn't a specified regulation that says, oh, it's got to be more than 5 miles, it's got to be more than 20 miles, it's got to be more than 50 miles. It's whatever your agency establishes, right? So there's not a specific regulation. Priority is given to children whose families can demonstrate they have relocated frequently within the last 2 years. So for example, this is something that you can demonstrate within your selection criteria. So within your selection criteria, you can, for example, put on there, families that moved within the last 6 months, they have higher priority than a family that's moved within a year to 2 years. So that's where you can give priority to the families that have newly come into your agency or to your program. Must move specifically to seek or obtain qualifying work. Of course, for both programs, they must move to be looking for work within your agency or your grantee, your community. Migrant education program, income requirements, there's none. So this is where I think the big difference is for our families, is where, why does the program from Tracy, why are they asking me for all these income regulations? Why are they asking me for taxes? Why are they asking me for all this stuff for my employer? And over here, this other agency from the school district doesn't really care. So I think that's where our families get a little bit confused, and where some of these myths might grow that, I'd rather be in that program because they don't ask for as much paperwork, or I'd rather be in that program because what if this program shares my information with immigration or with ICE or whatever that agency might be. So that is where I really want us to really understand and really hone in on helping parents understand that because the funding comes from different pots, there are different requirements, right, for the program. So I think that's a big one, Guadalupe. I don't know, would you agree with me that that's one of the big ones, the income requirements, that in Migrant Head Start?
Yeah, I really think that that's a huge difference for our program. Tracy, you want to say something about that, since you're right in the midst of all of it?
I would agree that the income factor is always causes some confusion for our families, and even for our outreach workers. Essie and I have collaborated for 5 years now, and even before that. And we've joined trainings, which we'll talk about a little bit later, but definitely it is the income requirement that gets people confused or hesitation to enroll.
I also think that it's hard to understand that once you're in migrant education, you will continue qualifying. But in Migrant Head Start, it's like you have to re-qualify every year, not on income level, but on the agricultural income, because every year you must meet that income guideline. And that priority, always goes to the most mobile of the migrants. And so that causes quite of uncertainty in both programs to, refer children to us or vice versa, because of all these little things that can be really clarified so the families can be from both programs.
Absolutely. So yeah, we're all on the same page, and Guadalupe and myself and Tracy, here we are, presenting this to all of you to see what we can do together to collaborate and break those barriers, and talk about some of these concerns and issues that our families are going through, so that they could come to you and say, you know what, Tracy, yeah, this really bothers me that every year you're asking me for this documentation and I don't understand why. Right? So helping the parents understand, and it's all about relationships, right? Building that relationship with families. Yeah. Building that relationship.
One of the reasons we've all been so successful is because Migrant Ed and Head Start in Colorado have developed that relationship. I have a relationship with Esmeralda, you know, and so yes, relationships with our families as well.
Yeah, absolutely, Tracy. And the parents can see that you and Esmeralda are this collaborative. You work together to serve them. And just like Guadalupe always says, migrant Head Start students will one day become migrant education students, right? So again, these students are gonna, transition from us to you, and then we'll take them on to that next level of college and their lifetime skills. So as we look at the next column, we look at citizenship work or authorization requirement. Again, for both programs, there's no requirement for parents to have a citizenship or authorization requirement for them to be within the program. Other program provisions that we see on here, there is priority in the migrant education program to children that are failing or most at risk of failing to meet the state challenging academic content standards and challenging state student academics. So children that are at risk of failing or not going to the next grade level, they do give them priority in the migrant education program under certain conditions. And then migrant Head Start priority, just like Guadalupe shared, it is given to families that are mobile, families that are migrating and mobile. And again, up to 10% of the children who are enrolled, they might exceed that 10% of over income, but it is funded especially for at least health for children that are eligible under the IDEA, which could be children with disabilities, children with IEPs, IFSPs, 504 plans, whatever your agency or state requires as that would fall under that. The statutory authority, so who writes these rules and regulations, what regulations we follow. For elementary school, it's the Elementary and Secondary Education Act of 1965. And for us, Migrant Head Start, we follow the Head Start Act and Improving Head Start for School Readiness Act of 2007. And we also have the new performance standards, right? That, has given us as grantees and agencies that flexibility to really see what our community assessment states and how we're able to better serve our families within our community.
Alicia,
Monday?
oh, before you move on, somebody had a question about the income guideline.
Sure.
And they
I
asked,
think that was, can you open your mic? The person who talked about poverty guidelines do not actually reflect the changes of the state.
I
Will
don't,
that
I don't think
eventually
they're
change?
able to, in this format, they're not able unless
Okay,
we unmute
so-
them.
So let me tell you something about the poverty guidelines. That is something that we're seeking now. I think that's an opportunity right now for government, the Congress to change that. That is a Congress law. And our associations who actually have lobbyists are working on that. Hopefully, because of COVID and because of what's happening with people's income, they'll hopefully change that. It's still out of our reach. To Sarah, who said that the language was changed for working parent, for seeking work versus, let me see, I'm trying to catch these things here that, let me see.
seek or obtain language? Is that what you meant?
Yeah. Can you read it, please, to
Yeah.
that, so I can address that?
The question goes, seek or obtain language was eliminated with the ESSA in 2015. Now the worker has to have engaged in the agricultural worker soon after.
Okay, within 60 days. That's a good point of reference for us. What we obtained was from the office, the Department of Education's website. We quoted that from theirs, but I will definitely make sure to review this and make sure that engaged is in there if that is what the law calls for. So thank you very much, Sara, for pointing that out to us. And it says that the next person talks about our families seem to be over income. Yeah, and again, there's not much we can do. We do have in Migrant Head Start a percentage, and I think it's 100. Tracy, correct me if I'm wrong. Is it 130% over income? There's a portion of it.
Yes, so it goes from, so our program is allowed 90%, 90% have to be income eligible, 10% can be over income, which would fall anywhere from 100 to 130%. And then you can also be over 130, but chances are you may not get in if you have a lot of 100 to 130 people on the wait list, families on the wait list. So yes, it is an issue that with the new minimum wage, things like that, our families are not being able to qualify based on the federal government poverty guidelines. We know that. We've said that for a long time. Guadalupe is very, very familiar with that. It's unfortunately, it's what Guadalupe said, it's in Congress's hands, because we know that state poverty guidelines versus federal, they don't match, but we are required to follow the federally funded poverty guidelines.
Absolutely. Now here's some more clarifying questions also that I think were answered in the matrix, but I just want to double check.
Yes.
The migrant education program also qualifies if you move from one school district to another school district. So you would also qualify for the migrant education program. And Maria Costa did share that 35% of families can be within the 100 to 130%. 10% of them could be over that 130%. Yes, absolutely. And I think one of the newer regulations also talks about that migrant can also be seeking for employment. So let's say they move over to Colorado, over to Tracy's area, and they don't have migrant work yet, but they could qualify stating that I am seeking for employment. I moved here because I want to seek for employment. And I think that's where maybe the 60 days came in, but they can join your program based on seeking employment within agriculture. So yes, those are some of the questions that were stated on here, Guadalupe. And, yeah, just like Tracy stated, now with, some of the states being $15 minimum wage, if you have two families working at two mom and a dad both working at minimum wage, they might not qualify, with a family of four. So absolutely, we understand some of those concerns. And I think that's why families get frustrated and say, gosh, it's, how can we survive on that, right? But again, there's within ERSI, the ERSI components, there's so many ways that you can average out that income. And you can either look at some current situations, you can look at the entire year. So again, within your agency, you're able to establish some of those policies and procedures to be able to help families and break those barriers so they can really get the services that they need for their children and families, right? So Guadalupe, I think
well, there's another question here, and it's a very good comment for clarification. They want Claudia asks for clarification on the migrant Head Start ag income. So there's two ways to qualify versus anybody else. Head Start qualifies anybody below the income poverty guidelines, or if you're in receiving benefits. Migrant Head Start's a little different. It's a very specific program, and it serves farm worker families, migrant and seasonal farm worker families. So you are correct, Claudia, that the Head Start standard says that any child who qualifies in low income gets 2 years of Head Start services. In Migrant Head Start, there's an added regulation to that they must qualify every year under income, agriculture income.
That's 51% and over.
Tracy, you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so verifying and making sure that 51% of a family's income is from agriculture is what makes us different from regular Head Start. So we have to always ensure that families, majority of their income, 51%, is from agriculture. Yeah. And so
We-
you're correct.
Yeah, we don't verify their low income the second year, but we do verify the agricultural piece, the income from there.
Right.
Mhm.
Correct.
Absolutely. And I think it's on there on the matrix, Guadalupe, where it says yes, must meet the poverty guidelines, and also it must meet the agricultural work component, the added on requirement, right? So
Yeah.
Guadalupe, thank you for allowing me to have this opportunity to share with everyone. You know, this was very eye-opening and clarifying. And it also expands on the importance of us having that relationship with our local migrant education program, migrant Head Start program, for us to work together, and parents can see that we're both on the same team, right, to help them and their families.
Thank you, Alicia, for that. And if you guys have any more questions, put them on the chat box. We will make sure, Jessica and I will make sure that your questions are answered. So we'll have that information there, and we will send you that. The PowerPoints will be shared with you, but also that matrix. And I will send it out as soon as I clarify exactly that wording that you proposed about the seeking versus engaging. I will make sure, I want to double check that before I send it out to you. Okay.
Yeah, can I say something real quick?
Sure.
I think sometimes people are getting a little bit lost and like, no, it's exactly this or exactly that. That's why we want to partner together, because in this particular format, we can kind of share generalizations, and even like you can see people saying, well, the seeking, and so you can be right on both ways. But we really want to start the dialogue, and then as you're sitting down with your partner agency in your area, you can really hash that out and say, okay, well, seeking means this and engaging means this. So I hope that the migrant staff are not getting stuck on one, hey, this is our rule, the point is that we have this beginning discussion. We understand we're serving very similar ways, but we do have very, sometimes they're very different rules, sometimes they're very similar. But the point of today really is to start that dialogue and don't get stuck in, hey, this is not right, this is not right. I think they did a great job presenting our general regulations. We know kind of where we stand at, and then let's get out and meet our partners and then see where those really, where those nuances are. But for today's purpose is really for us to see that big picture. And Alicia, you did a great job doing that. And then I'm really excited about seeing how you guys are going to explain them the programs that kind of work together. But I just hate for the participants to just be stuck on, we've got too many rules on both sides. We can make ourselves crazy.
Yeah, you could. I now want to introduce you to Esmeralda Martinez and Tracy Lucero, who you've been hearing a lot of through this presentation. And Esmeralda, Esmeralda, I don't know the whole title, neither do I know Tracy's, but I know they're coming up, and if they'd like to share their screen right now and share a wonderful and partnership that they have developed throughout the years. And it's one of the highlights that I think are important to recognize. And hopefully this will give both Migrant Head Start and migrant education staff ideas of how to collaborate. I know that we have other programs who do a great job, but there's some programs who don't have that opportunity or haven't had that opportunity yet. So here's a great place to start. So take it away, Esmeralda and Tracy.
Thank you, Guadalupe. Essie, will you share your screen, or do you want me to?
Please do, or also Yvonne offered to share her screen.
Okay, Yvonne, if you could, that would be great. No, I'll just slide it over.
Oh, I can share it. Just give me a second to pull it up.
Okay.
Well, hello, everyone. Thank you, Guadalupe, for the invitation. I'm Esmeralda Martinez, migrant seasonal. Now I'm going to be adopted by your program. I am actually the Migrant Education Program Director for the Southwest region. We cover a variety of school districts, and our region is pretty lengthy. It starts here in Colorado in the Southwest area. It covers, it's pretty close to New Mexico and also Utah in one corner and right in the middle of the state. So as you can see, it's a lot to cover. And that's why our partnership with Migrant Seasonal Headstart is really important. And we'll go more into depth throughout the presentation. Thank you. Tracy?
And thank you for welcoming me. I am the Executive Director of Otero Junior College Child Development Services, which is Migrant and Seasonal Head Start. We service 4 migrant centers in the San Luis Valley as well as the Arkansas Valley. And it's through this program. Actually, Esmeralda and I met prior to her being the director and myself being the director, but it was through a common employee that we really were able to connect and make this partnership. So we're excited to be here. Thank you for having us. It's been a great partnership, and I believe so many children and families have benefited from this collaboration. So you can see the description here. Really, we really want to talk to you about the importance of building relationships. And as we were talking when Alicia and Guadalupe were introducing this presentation, the key word of relationships came about. And we all know that that's one of the major foundations of Head Start, is building those relationships. And so really talking about the 2 programs, building a relationship to improve quality services for children of farm worker families, so that families and children can thrive and be successful. This discussion, we really want to have an interactive presentation, so questions and comments are very welcome.
Wonderful. And the learning objectives for today, and it may have already been presented to you, but it is to identify the value and the benefits of the partnerships and collaboration between Migrant Seasonal Head Start and Migrant Education Program. We want to learn best practices that are proven to result in successful partnerships at the national, state, at the local level, and through effective collaboration. We want to learn how Migrant Seasonal Head Start and MEP approach school readiness, as Guadalupe mentioned earlier, ensuring children are ready for school, families are ready to support their children's learning, and schools are ready for our children.
So our purpose is to really coordinate resources. When we first began this, I don't even really believe Esmeralda and I understood what each other's programs did. And once we sat down at the table, Guadalupe was with us. Once we sat down, we really talked about how can we align the services so that families are receiving the best collaborative support, and how can we link our resources to ensure quality services are being provided, as well as culturally comprehensive services. So it was an exciting time. It still is exciting when we meet each year to talk about the purpose and how we're going to continue to move forward.
And so now we will share with you institutionalized MOU are very important, and Guadalupe helped us develop one. And so what we did when we had that meeting that Tracy referred to, we discussed what are some of the needs that we have at the table for MEP and for Migrant Seasonal Head Start. And so what we included in this MOU are these bullets that you have before you, is children transitional bridge, training and technical assistance was needed, Parent engagement was in both of our programs, coordination of services, and of course, we all need to make sure that we have this in our MOU is that we have data sharing agreements and that is also communicated to our families. And so we will go more in depth in addressing how we meet those bullets and that we included in the MOU. And so the first one was the kindergarten transition bridge. And so this is where we discussed, this is definitely a need for both of our programs for our families, right? And so MEP agreed to secure parent authorization for release of all information and data shared with MEP and public school systems. We also wanted to make sure to provide MEP personnel with a list of children and parents that are transitioning to public schools, which is really key. We want to provide all relevant information and data to facilitate enrollment and continuity of services in the public school. Many times, I think our schools don't realize that we work together. And so being at the table when students enroll is essential.
It is. And so Migrant and Seasonal Head Start, we act like the liaison and advocate for transition of children and parents to public school systems, which is really a strong system. We encourage public schools and personnel to participate and attend those transition meetings. So, you know, it might be that your education manager is facilitating those meetings, or your lead education personnel in your centers. We participate in planning meetings for the transition of migrant and seasonal Head Start children and parents to public school, and we assist parents, migrant and seasonal Head Start parents, in their communication with public school personnel. So if that means interpretation or translation, we really support our families in making a smooth transition to public school.
Can I make a comment? I think this really highlights that migrant and seasonal Head Start children will become migrant education children. It doesn't, regardless, they will become that. And the things that you have put on here really help not only the child, and I'm glad you remember to put parents, because it's not only the child that transitions, it's also the parent that transitions. And going from one school system to another is really difficult for them. So thank you for putting that there.
Right, and one of the points I want to make is I learned a few years ago, it's helping the public school be ready for our parents, not just our parents, you know, being ready for public school, but public school, how can you support culturally our families that are transitioning to?
Correct.
And in addressing the training and technical assistance, what we included in the MOU is to serve as a communication bridge between SEA and Migrant Seasonal Head Start. If there are any needs that Migrant Seasonal Head Start have of MEP, then we reach out to our higher ups at the state level and ask, how can we best support Migrant Seasonal Head Start? So that's a continued communication. We also provide program overview updates and share information of upcoming trainings, events for Migrant Seasonal Head Start's participation. We plan joint meetings and joint trainings to capitalize on the expertise of Migrant Seasonal Head Start and MEP personnel, which is really important, as we already discussed earlier, and Jessica made it really clear that there are so many differences that are small, but can be big if we put too much effort into really learning those rules. But the overarching goal is that it's the same families and we can continue those services. and that's what we capitalize on. We enact and utilize joint calendars of events for both programs, Migrant Seasonal Headstart and MEP. And I know that Tracy will send me dates that are important and relevant, and also her staff, so that we can be at the table and also participate in those events. And we'll share more at the next slide, I think. But go ahead, Tracy.
Right. And, one of the key factors I was just thinking as Ezzy was talking through her MEP technical assistance is, I want to go back to the data. When I first started this collaboration relationship with MEP, Esmeralda, and Guadalupe, my program did not have an online tracking system. So we were really in that stage where we were filling out everything by hand. We didn't really have a database so that we could just run a list of families to see who and where they were from, what was, everything was hand tallied. So MAP was already, I want to say like a century ahead of us. They had a database that could track their children throughout the state. We didn't have that system in place yet. And so, the fact that Esmeralda was able to say, oh, this family has been in public school, or this family has not, or they've come from this part of Colorado or not, that was so beneficial to our program. And I just wanted to make that point that there was a system there that we could have been tapping into that we hadn't. And so, you're right, Esmeralda. The overall, we could get so caught up into those little qualifications, but really the overall approach and overall goal is to ensure that children from agricultural backgrounds are successful in public school. So yeah, we do a great job of joining trainings and capitalizing on the expertise of both programs, specifically in the area of early childhood. We provide program overview, updates, and share information. So this really, we're starting to prepare for our migrant season. I'm on the phone with Esmeralda or emailing her to say, here's what's new, here's what we're going to do, and here's what we're offering. And then to enact and utilize joint calendar for events of Migrant and Seasonal Head Start. We just had the conversation yesterday. With COVID, we're sending things home with families. Esmeralda, if you need us to send something, bring it. We'll send it out. That really for the safety of parents and for staff. If only one program is making that contact, we're limiting the contacts, limiting the spread of, this COVID, the pandemic. So really trying to support and, translation, interpretation. It's been such a wonderful opportunity.
The other component that we have included is a parent engagement. And I can really see how we have really worked together to make parent engagement as strong as it is. MEP facilitates the dissemination of Migrant Seasonal Head Start newsletter to MEP families and staff. We contribute MEP information and activities to be included in the Migrant Seasonal Head Start newsletter. We plan joint activities at or for the Migrant Seasonal Head Start or MEP events. We have family nights and parent trainings and literacy activities. And again, this is really, it really comes to flourish when our staff communicate, when they plan the activities and they say, oh, what's your area of expertise? What do you like to share with our families? And that's where that really partnership comes to flourish, is when they discuss where they have assets, they have talents, and language comes into play. If you don't have a multilingual speaker, we can provide that. Kanhawa speaker is is usually something that we need and that we provide for those family nights. We have expertise in the area of reading, and so that is where those family nights and the training for families really is enhanced.
And just to add on to that, when we began this, there was information from both programs, and we both had outreach workers going into the field. And we said, why don't we combine the information and give it out when we're really recruiting for both programs? Because you are right, Guadalupe. Our families and our children are eventually going to become MEP families and MEP families. And I just think back to all of the successful events and opportunities that we've shared. Family nights. Esmeralda has said, hey, I have all these wonderful picture books. This person from my program, if they could attend your family night, they're going to hand out all these books to your families, and they're going to read and talk about that. And we do the same. We do the same, but I think about all of the resources that have been shared between the two programs, even for recruitment. Hearing from one of the MEP outreach workers saying, Tracy, there's a family here in this area. I've given them your information, but you may want to follow up. It just helps. And us doing the same with MEP, planning those joint activities for both programs so that we are working smarter and not harder, and ensuring that our families are benefiting from the resources and activities.
And ladies, I also wanted to add that parents can also see that collaboration between both programs, and they can see how your staff communicate with each other, and and you have this parallel process, right, of how building that relationship will help them be successful as well as part of parent engagement. So thank you. I'm so excited to see this collaboration. So amazing that parents are able to visually see it.
Thank you for that, Alicia. You're right. Parents do ask for resources. They ask for referrals. When new families arrive, many times we may be the ones that are identifying that new family, and we notice that they have a little one, and that's where we say, oh, we need to refer you to this program so they have the facility that we can't provide. We don't have that capability, but you do. And that's where the partnership is really important for that service for our families. And as we coordinate services, just to add on, we plan coordination and the implementation of joint recruitment, as Tracy said, especially with those referrals. And we can't do this right now because of the pandemic, but we did talk about possibly recruiting together and going out as teams and getting our staff together to recruit during peak recruitment. And if that's not sometimes an opportunity, we can do the referrals then, and just a phone call to an MEP or an Migrant Seasonal Headstart staff is helpful. We provide MEP families with the flyers and the brochures, and as I said, the referral list of potentially new families that need your services. We also coordinate and monitor and evaluate the recruitment and enrollment process for both programs, which I think is really important, is to continue to evaluate, because our programs and our families change, and so we also need to make sure that we're changing to meet their needs.
Right. And it's been so key in recruitment. I can't tell you how this partnership has really supported not only Migrant and Seasonal Head Start, but MEP. The sharing of information, the sharing of recruitment, the sharing of training. We have a framework, a parent-family engagement framework, and Esmeralda is so great about helping our service workers create this bond by sharing the training. So as she said, I'll send her a calendar, and the outreach workers come together, and they learn together, and through that learning, they build this relationship, which absolutely supports all of these bullets on this slide. It is the relationship building, and part of that is the training that each of us provides to the other program. Through those trainings, so many beautiful partnerships have been made amongst the outreach workers for both programs, which is key in facilitating all of this, all of these bullet points, you know, providing families with this information.
When we talked about the data sharing that Tracy mentioned earlier, it is something that took a long time to get approval, not only from the state, but at a national level. We found ways to make that possible by including it in the certificate of eligibility. So every time we identify a new family, we have a little sentence on the bottom that says, for FERPA purposes, we can and will share this information if you allow us to, and this is just to benefit your family, your student, your family. And so with that, we are able to share this information with you all and also CAMP and HEP. We also implement a shared case management approach with Migrant Seasonal Headstart to determine the needs for support for the child and the family that's enrolled in both the programs. And we focus on assessing the needs, referring them to different services, not only to our programs, but referring them out to different programs that maybe provide housing, nutrition, and other things that our programs cannot provide. And that is really, really important for our families, especially now during the pandemic. We know that education is not their only need. So we really need to work in expanding our collaboration and partnerships to other programs that provide additional services for migrant workers.
Right, and so that I don't repeat with what Ezzy just said, in addition, really using our community assessment and our self-assessment to share the information, as Ezzy has stated, for what's changing in our community. How do we change and individualize to meet the needs of our community and our families and our children? So, you know, we're great at building that community assessment and our PIR report, all of that pertinent information, and sharing that with MEP.
And so some of the outcomes that we've already shared with you are, you know, the surveys of our CNAs and the implementation of the occupational survey that helps with the identification of new families. And our MEP staff always follow up on any referrals, as well as Migrant Seasonal Headstart staff. MEP presentations, MEP has also been allowed to present during family nights, as we mentioned. And so some of these things were already mentioned throughout the presentation. Just wanted to make sure that we bulleted them for you for references. But again, I think the partnership has really flourished and has, of course, room for improvement as the needs of our families change. We need to continue to modify our MOU and how we work together to make those transitions seamless and to have that continuity of services for our families.
Right, and so sorry, I was looking at the chat box. There were some concerns, right, about having parents getting their signature for FERPA. And so we invested in a program that is very similar to DocuSign. It's actually called PandaDoc. So as we continue to enroll families, we're able to send the forms through DocuSign, which allow us to get that signature so that we're in compliance with FERPA. So that's how we were able to do it, for our families. And again, you're right, when we weren't able, when families did not have the technology, taking a verbal and then following up when we are able to meet with them. So, documenting that. But yes, absolutely, the not DocuSign, but the PandaDoc that we invested in allowed us to get those electronic signatures. It's very, very similar to DocuSign. It's called PandaDoc. So yeah, so value and benefits. I hope that throughout this presentation, you've seen the value that resources, training, data sharing, the partnership for both of our program, due to the fact that the populations we serve are very similar, and we can benefit from both of our resources and our services. Migrant families do not know where to go for services, so having the initial contract with either program facilitates the process of adapting to the community. And that's what we're funded for, right? To help families become successful in their community. Migrant families, seasonal families, really supporting them with the resources and the that are within their communities.
That's right. And really successful partnerships through collaboration. What are best practices? You all have best practices in your location. And so we're just honored to be able to share what we feel are best practices for our families. Is knowing your staff and having that one-on-one communication to facilitate the sharing of family data and ensures that families are not missing out on any services. That is our main objective. And our staff coming together and realizing, trusting each other that by working together, we can facilitate the needs of our families and giving them that support that they need.
Again, the bottom line is school readiness, ensuring that our children and our families are ready for public school, supporting their learning and making sure that schools are ready for our families as well. Having those conversations with public schools.
Both programs are receptive to suggestions to improve the partnership, which will enhance the services to migrant families and their children. So if you have any suggestions, please let us know. We're willing to grow, we're willing to work together. And I just want to thank Tracy for the partnership, and I want to thank all the support from the centers that we work with. They are very supportive. They're always embracing our ideas, our suggestions, and welcoming us to their centers. And they call us when they have new families, and we're there at the table when they have registration. They invite us to set up a table and register families there as well, to provide services, to give them away a little book for their children. There are so many things that we can do together and provide stronger services when we work together. And I just want to end by saying thank you, Guadalupe. And I also want to thank Adriana Aranda. I'm not sure if she logged on today, but I always like to recognize her work, because if it wasn't for her, we would probably be in the beginning stages of this conversation right now. So thank you all for inviting me to share what works for us. And I really do hope that other states can also begin these conversations if they haven't already.
And I would like to thank everyone for listening to our presentation, Esmeralda, for a great partnership. I always get excited when this time of year comes around, because we get to see our great friends from MEP. We train together. We talk about what are we going to do this year? It's so exciting, and it's partnerships and friendships, I want to say, that I believe we've created that will last forever. So I thank you for the support for Migrant and Seasonal Head Start as well as MEP. We're excited for this new season, and if we can help any of you build a collaboration in your state, we are more than willing to speak with anyone, give suggestions, and as well as take the suggestions. So Guadalupe, thank you. And again, Adriana as well. She was the employee who was common between the two programs that said, hey, I've worked for both of you. What can we do to bring you together? And it's exciting. Yes, thank you.
Thank you to both of you. Folks, this is a true partnership. This is a true collaboration. That's what it looks like, to have something that is formed together by both programs to ensure that all our children and families succeed. So I am so grateful for that. It is a wonderful presentation. And I'm always, always so honored to hear you guys talk about your programs and how you take care of each other. So I really do appreciate that. And people have asked me if we can share your MOU, and actually I've said yes, because we always do anyway. So I really appreciate that. So now let me share a little bit with you, because you've been seeing this little guy. And this is a question that I'm asking you to write down in your chat box. Who has an MOU with your counterpart, currently has an MOU with your partners, with your counterpart, whether you're MEP going with Migrant Head Start or Migrant Head Start? If you could please answer that in the chat box, write the state you're in, the grantee, meaning Migrant Head Start, or the agency, because migrant education comes from various agencies also. So if you could do that, we will keep track of who has those partnerships. And if you feel it's like a strong partnership, please write that down, because we want to highlight you too, if you currently have that. So I'll give you a couple of minutes to write in the chat box, if you have a current MOU with your counterpart. Ready, set, go. Are we getting any in the chat box? I can't see.
Yes, Minnesota, Washington Education. I mean, CAPWN have MOU. We had an MOU, but changed the format of it.
Awesome.
Format of it in the past year. We collaborated with their PAC and recruitment efforts, as well as their participated health fairs. And that was from Tennessee.
Awesome. So keep writing those down, those of you who have current. Now I'm going to ask another question, if I can move this upside down. Okay. Now, can you, those of you who do not have an MOU with your counterpart, can you tell us in the chat box the state, the grantee, or agency? And if you would like some assistance in helping you start that relationship or collaboration, we'd be very happy to do that. So go ahead and write that down, and we definitely will help you out, individual grantees and agencies, state by state, if need be. So are we getting any on the chat?
Arizona, Illinois, and then one says Wichita, Alabama,
Awesome.
MEP, Tennessee,
awesome.
Nebraska, Arizona.
Well, let me tell you, that is what Jessica and I would like to do. We have an MOU at the national level, and as you saw, states can have their MOUs for local areas. So I want to share with you a little bit about how we work as far as collaboration. And what I like to show is this collaboration spectrum all the time. As you can see, this has several levels. You have, are you in the competing stage with your with your counterpart? Are you competing for clients? And as Alisa pointed out, did they steal my children? If you're in that stage, then you're definitely you're in that. So I want you to look at this spectrum and see, where do you fall? Where do you think you fall with your counterpart? And it also reflects on those who don't have an MOU. It's not about that. It's about relationships. Do you have a relationship with them, and where is it in the spectrum? Because as you can see on the top level, it says trust. Where does the trust start? And where does the struggle start? Which on the bottom, you will see the turf. There are turf. Unfortunately, because of history, some programs, and not understanding the regulations, I think has caused a lot of that. Is we want to be where the trust is. We want to be able to make sure that you're sharing information, that you're integrated with each other's activities, as you know, that you're organizing, that you're sharing your work plans like Colorado is. So take a picture in your mind where you are, and picture where you want to be. So we are able to help you with that. I always have trouble. Okay, so what makes a strong MOU? I just want to share with you a little bit of what we think is involved in a strong MOU. First of all, you have to see where you are, what your intent is, what the purpose of building this relationship. Now, there are several ways of looking at an MOU. Some MOUs could have, MOUs are all about relationships. This is not a contract. This is not an agreement. This is a relationship. It's an MOU. So you must have common goals. So you have to sit down and define what those goals are. What is your mission, your vision? What is your goal for these families? And you have common expectations. You have a common cause. And you need to understand that there are agreements that you will come to and compromises that you make during this overall statement of purpose. The other thing that I want to share with you is that keep the description simple. I think a lot of MOUs sometimes have way too much stuff that we want to do, but we don't real. No, sorry. That's my dogs back in the background. Hold on a second. Let me get my daughter to take our dog. Okay, so sorry about that. That's what comes with working from home. So keep the description simple and realistic. Don't write things that you will not accomplish or you don't intend to accomplish. Spell out what you mean. Avoid checklists and vagueness. If I see an MOU that says training, that's vagueness. When I see education, that's vagueness. So you need to say, what specifically do you want to do with those pieces that you're going to include in there? And who is the service for? Sometimes we just say children. And as you heard Esmeralda and Tracy talk about parents. In Migrant Headstart, as well as in MEP, we don't just provide services to children. It's the whole family that we really want to include. So write that out. There may be a section for children and there may be a section for parents, for the family. So I encourage you to look at those things. Be specific, spell out what you mean. And I was just talking about that. So don't just say education, don't just say trainings. Specify ideas. Did you see when Tracy and Esmeralda were talking about, they talked about the M6. And Tracy referred to their database collection. And I don't know which one they use right now, but I'm assuming it's, Tracy, correct me. What system do you use?
Child Plus. We use that now. Yeah.
Right. So they share those things, name them, so that people see it and say, oh yeah, these are the two databases we're going to be using. They shared a lot about what they do in their recruitment. They were very specific. And that's what you want, specificity. Health fairs, parent meetings, letters, those things came to, through their calendar, their shared activities, what they could do together and what things they are doing separate, but they're always including each other in these types of activities. And for sure, write each other letters of support, because we all write grants, right? So support each other on that, and those are the kind of things that you want to put on there. There's other things like community assessment data. Share that. If you want the community assessment data, then share that. So be specific of what you want. Spell out what you mean. And just like Esmeralda and Tracy were sharing, this is a very live and active relationship. Very live and active. And so they're able to meet every year and go, whoa, what did we succeed in? Where do we need to work on? What do we need to change? That is all reflected in their MOU. It comes from their relationship. And Esmeralda made a point of saying this, is you need to monitor and revisit that often, because things do change, families do change. So that is important. But the most important thing is, please, please, have somebody in authority help write these. Okay, you need your two directors. It can't be people who don't have that authority to commit to this. This is a directorship level, because everything that you see on this list is money. It's time, people's time. And that is something that only the leadership can do. It's really important to make sure that your leadership is in on the beginning when you develop these. So I leave you with that, just because we're running into some time, but I want to give some time to any questions that's out there. I want to thank everybody, Alicia, Esmeralda, and Tracy, for their presentation. And I want to let you know that just as Tracy and Esmeralda work at the state level, Jessica and I are working at the federal level to help you out on really building that relationship. And we're here to help anything that you need, because our children will always, always be migrant education children. So with that, I leave you our number. And I want to ask if there's any questions that you feel you might want to ask us. This is the time. Yvonne, are there any questions in the chat box?
They want to know if you will be sending out the MOU.
Yes, we will be sending out the MOU. We will be sending out the framework, the crosswalk between Migrant Headstart and Migrant Education. We'll do that. We'll also send you the MOU that we have at a national level. So it gives you an idea of how to begin to create these partnerships. And I don't know if you wanted the PowerPoints or not, but if you do, we'll be happy.
We usually post, hold on a second. Too many computers. We usually post on our IDRC website. We'll post the webinar recording and then the presentation files, if that's okay with you guys. But we do have everyone's email since they have registered. So I'll share that with you, Guadalupe, so that we can just send an email out to all those that participated too. Most
definitely. I would like to email everybody all the complete packet. And with that review, I did promise I would check out on that statute for migrant education on that was made in the comments about engagement versus seeking
Yes, yes.
work. So I'll correct that or take a look at that and see.
Well, and we
Any-
just want to say thank you to you guys being willing to share. I think ever since I was fortunate enough to find your phone number, Guadalupe has always been really good about, trying to figure out how we can work together. So I think this is all of you guys that are listening. I feel like we've had a really good representation of both Migrant Ed and Migrant Seasonal Head Start. So hopefully those of us that don't have those strong partnerships can see where it's went there in Colorado and how beneficial that is. And we're really appreciative of you guys being willing to share your time with us today.
Any last comments from our presenters? No.
I want to thank you, Guadalupe. Thank you for this great opportunity and for allowing us, to collaborate with you. You are just the pioneer in collaboration, and we want to thank you for your hard work and dedication to Migrant Seasonal Head Start families. Thank you, Guadalupe.
Thank you
Todo
so
sea por
much.
los niños. Todo sea por los niños.